Okay, so I'll say business as usual in the sense that you've been very busy. I think you're always very busy, but in recent weeks, noticeably, you have acquired, I think it's a strategic site in Mantsala in Finland, and that's, is it four or number five? I think it's fifth Nordic data center. So, yeah, just be good to understand, I guess, the background to the expansion. Yeah, talk us through it.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Phil. So we were acquired by Ardian, which is one of the very large private equity investors around the world last year, early on in 2024. And so the recent announcements that we've had around our acquisition of sites has really been the follow-on from the growth that we're now preparing ourselves for and experiencing by allowing us to expand into new sites, new territories, and continue the growth that we're very much focused on. This is our fifth Nordic data center, and it's a big step for us. It's really focused on meeting the demand of the global companies that we work with as our customers, who are looking to focus on the type of infrastructure that we provide for them, which really enables them to do the advanced computing, the very dense computing and high performance computing that most of them operate in, but also still very much focused on the Nordic environment and the sustainable energy and efficiency derived from that Nordic environment and power generation available in those Nordic locations to enable our customers to continue to be as efficient and cost effective as possible. So hopefully reducing their environmental impact versus where they could operate otherwise. But it's an exciting moment as we continue to grow our footprint in Nordic territories.
Okay, yeah, and so in terms of what the new site will offer, it'd be good to understand just I guess the numbers, the capacity, site size, customer focus, things like that.
Sure, Phil. So one of the big things going on, as you know very well in our market, is the challenge for finding powered sites, sites that are substantial, that have power available immediately. And one of the nice things that we have with this particular site in Mantsala, which is just north of the city centre of Helsinki in Finland, is that we have a starting power capacity of around 70 megawatts. And that's unusual at the moment. Pretty much any country is struggling to have power available in immediate terms. So for us to find a site that's as substantial as it is, so around the 10 hectares in size, that is flat, that is zoned, that is ready for us to start developing and has power available immediately, that's unusual. So that's very exciting for us because it enables us to meet the demand immediately for the customers that we're talking to. And although this obviously takes time to develop, it does mean that we can plan absolutely because the power is available on the timeline of delivery of that development. And in numbers, it is 10 hectares in size, a nice flat site, which enables us to start developing immediately without any significant ground or civil works. And the capacity available for power day one will be 70. It will likely grow from there, but that's the immediately available power for that particular site.
And in terms of customer, I mean, everyone's talking obviously about this AI explosion and catering for that. Is that specifically what you're looking to do, or are you bit of that and should we say more normal inverted commas applications, or yeah, what's a typical customer going to look like, I suppose?
Sure, and I think our background has always been a focus at the very high density end and power intensive end of customers. That will very much continue. That's always what we've been focused on. We've always been able to deliver the highest intensity and highest performance density level of compute. And that will continue to be the focus of our customer base. But I think what we're seeing is that with a location like this, which is just on the periphery of Helsinki, that this is an appealing location for the hyperscalers. It's also very much an appealing location for the type of customers that we've catered to in a number of different locations from large enterprise customers. And that can be in any number of different sectors that we've covered previously, but also this new breed of AI customers, which has appeared and scaled so rapidly over the course of the last few years. That's very much a focus of customer type that we'll be looking at for this particular location. So very similar to what we've always been focused on, but definitely the high end of capability, the high density end of customer requirements is absolutely what this site is perfect for.
Okay, and sustainability is also another sort of major focus, always has been for Verne Global. And I guess on this site, no different. So tell us a little bit about the energy supply, and I think there's some waste heat reuse potentially going to be happening in parts of the project. So yeah, talk us through.
That's that's absolutely right. So one of the nice things about this site is we've been working very closely with the local community. So the municipality from whom we bought the site is the municipality of Mantsala. We've got a very good relationship with them. We've been working hand in hand for planning out what this site looks like over the years ahead. We've also been working very closely with the local power company, Nivos. That's the company that enables us to get the connection to the power grid in Finland. And that planning began some time ago, but has enabled us to develop local relationships that will really emphasize the sustainability of this particular site. And as always, as you say, we are focused on sustainability. Finland, like all of the Nordic countries, positions itself very well for both sustainable power generation as well as low carbon power generation. And the mix of power available in Finland is very strong. The transmission grid is also phenomenally reliable in Finland and has been built on a relatively modern new basis. So we're able to connect to a modern grid that does have access to sustainable and low carbon power immediately. So remains very much a focus for us on this particular site. And really, one of the things that was a message from day one is how do we make this particular site benefit the local community, not just from bringing jobs and development opportunities to the area, but also the heat reuse. So that was actually part of the discussions from day one with both the municipality and the energy company nearby. So this will have heat reuse as part of the plan that we have for the development of the site, and that will grow as the site grows, but will serve the local community both potentially for industrial heat reuse as well as domestic heat reuse as the infrastructure is built out. So once again, as always, 100% focus on sustainability, energy efficiency, and the type of power we use and the type of heat we're able to reuse from the operations of the facility.
Okay, I'm just wondering, I mean, I just come off a conversation with a data center provider who's going to be using seawater, ocean water cooling. And it just struck me, Finland, I think one of the things it's known for, the many lakes it has. I'm just wondering, is that in your thoughts at all, or is it already part of the plans, yeah, in terms of using some of that water? Because I know data centers clearly power is what they're sort of renowned for consuming, but they do also consume lots of water. So I'm just wondering, is lake water anywhere within your plans when it comes to the cooling side of things in Finland?
Sure. So two quick points on this. One is we're not immediately next to either sea or lake water with this particular location. So it's not a directly usable attribute for this particular site. You tend to have to be pretty close to either one of those sources. But the second point I would make is actually because we're in a Nordic location, actually the use of water is significantly reduced compared with some other territories. So one of the reasons we have always focused on those Nordic territories is actually because of the very efficient and minimal use of water in the design of our data centers and the cooling infrastructure that's needed for those facilities. So it's actually something that we're very focused on all of the time, not able to use in this particular location in terms of actual lake water or salt water from the sea, but because of the design that we have, because of the cooler climate that we're operating in a Nordic environment, we're actually able to really reduce and be very efficient on our water consumption.
Yep, no, that's good. And in terms of the time frame for the build, I guess there's a roadmap as to how much because people don't tend to build the whole thing out, straight away. So what's the time frame for the build of this new facility?
Sure. So we're planning to break ground during the course of this year. Most projects at the moment are taking more than 12 months and less than 24 months, very much dependent on what we're going to be building. That's going to be a bit dictated by the customer conversations that we're having at the moment, and we haven't defined exactly what specification will be developed on this particular site. But certainly within the next 24 months, a substantial amount of this campus will have been built out. It may not be fully built out to the full 70 megawatts range, but a decent amounts of that probably will have been by the 24-month mark. But we are intending to start as soon as possible in the months ahead and certainly during the course of 2025.
Okay, and you've been busy because I think your existing Helsinki data center campus, you're also expanding that as well. So, yeah, please tell us. I'm sure similar reasons as to why you've announced this fifth site, but just talk us through what specifically is going on with the expansion of the existing site.
Sure, thanks, Phil. So we've been operating from a site in Helsinki for many years, and that already serves a number of our high-profile customers that are both running high-performance compute, general compute, and continue to expand into this denser AI compute. So we have recently acquired the site in Helsinki that we've been operating from, and we acquired that from its previous owner, a property developer and owner. And now having control of that site, we have similar ambitions so that we've got two sites located in two different municipalities in the Helsinki region. The municipalities are Vante and Mantsala. They're very close to each other, enabling our customers to have a choice between those two sites. They're also quite similar in size and scale in terms of what we're going to be developing there. So similar to the Mantsala site with 70 megawatts of immediately available power, we're going to be developing the site in Vante, similar scale, around 70 megawatts of capacity there, very much focused on the same type of design, so high density compute, catering to those three different customer types that we were just discussing, but also enabling us to deliver highly efficient, sustainable infrastructure in a Helsinki region that enables us to have two options for our customers to choose from, which we're very excited about. Very similar type of workflows for customers expected, very similar design, but enabling us to have that footprint that's a real stronghold in the very core Helsinki market.
And I'm also wondering, Verne Global was acquired by Ardian, and just thoughts as to what that's delivered, what extra that's delivered to you, whether, for example, we're talking about these investment expansion programs, would those have been possible prior to the acquisition, or if they were maybe at a longer time frame? Just, I guess, what is it that Ardian's sort of brought to the party, shall we say?
Acceleration of growth. So being owned by Ardian, the plans that we've had for some time have accelerated rapidly. We were acquired by Ardian in March 2024, and in the space of the last 10 months, a core focus of ours has been to really move forward with some of the plans that we were holding on to, but Ardian has enabled us to do that. They're one of the largest private equity funds in the world with over $170 billion of assets under management. More than $30 billion of that is in infrastructure investments, and they're a significant investor in Nordic businesses, very much so in Finland and Sweden specifically. They've got huge amounts of experience in infrastructure in wind, heat reuse, and a number of other Nordic investments. So what they've enabled us to do is move forward with some of the plans that we've had for some time. That has specifically on these two particular sites enabled us to acquire those sites, put plans in place for our expansion, and make available for customer conversations many, many tens of megawatts, nearly 140 megawatts of capacity between these two sites that we'll be bringing online over the course of this next 2-year period. So absolutely, Ardian has enabled us to accelerate that growth, to enable the kind of customer demand met with the supply that we're going to be bringing online over this next couple of years.
Okay, so in terms of the existing Verne Global portfolio, you've now got data centers in Finland, Iceland, and obviously the one in London. Is that right?
That's absolutely right, Phil, yes.
Okay, and I suppose the obvious next question to that then is plans for the future. That clearly the Nordics, for the reasons you've explained, is a very good place to be building data centers. London, I mean, there's always going to be a demand there, but I know trying to find a location and the power is perhaps getting a bit more difficult. And there's this gradual, I won't say drift, but there's a focus on what people might be called tier 2 or 3 sort of site locations, etc. I guess anything you can share as to where the company might be looking to continue its development would be good.
Absolutely. We've been very consistent on our message and our focus for more than a decade that we are at Verne a sustainable data center operator focused on the Nordic locations that we operate from. So really our most substantial footprint as it stands today is in Iceland, very much a core focus that remains, and we'll continue to expand out that very substantial campus, which has a footprint that will have more than 150 megawatts when it's fully built out. That still remains a core focus of ours, and we will continue to expand there as we are. Then we've got a footprint that is very much in operation in Finland. These two announcements enable us to go even further and faster, with around 140 megawatts available over the years ahead on those two sites. We are working on other locations in Finland as well. And although not fully announced, we are working on a location potentially too in Norway as well. We see that as another core Nordic market that we hope to expand into in the course of the next year or so. And we're putting things in place that enable us to move forward with that. We hope to be back talking to you again about that when we're ready to. But that will enable us to have a footprint in these core Nordic markets of Iceland, Finland, Norway, and we'll continue to expand multiple megawatts in each of those locations. We will continue to look at other territories, but we remain absolutely focused on Nordic compute. And the thing that we've always been consistent on is that sustainability sits at the heart of our positioning and our message. That will always be the case. I think we've seen over the course of the last few years less of a focus on sustainability because there has been an arms race for power available in all sorts of territories. So rather than talking about tier one, tier two, what we actually think about is how our customers use their compute, the type of infrastructure that they need to serve their data, their workflows, and how they're going to process them. That's our key focus. How can our customers do so in a more efficient, cost-effective, and sustainable way? That's our core focus, always has been. What we're seeing now is a growth that is accelerating rapidly on the high-performance compute or high-density end, very much driven by the adoption of GPUs and this layer of artificial intelligence, compute and applications that's sitting on top of that. And that's very much a market that plays to our core strengths and does not necessarily all need to sit in core, as you would put them, tier one markets. A lot of the training, also what we're about to see, a lot of the inference of those applications can sit in less latency sensitive territories. Particularly the training of models can be done pretty much anywhere on the planet. As long as you can get the data there and as long as you can process in an efficient manner, that's really what our focus is for that particular market. But we're going to see this continued growth, and I do think the sustainability will come back in as a core focus for the data center industry over the course of the next couple of years, even if there has been a bit of a hiatus on focus on that for various reasons that we're all fully aware of. But we're going to be doing more, just come back to your question, in Iceland, Finland, Norway, and that is the key focus for Verne going forward.
Yeah, and you mentioned, shall we say, the political hiatus. I mean, is this a time where clearly the industry as a whole has been, pretty much sort of untrammeled growth and everyone's optimism. Is there anything that sort of concerns you about the volatility, shall we say, in the political world when it comes to the impact it might have on the data center industry, or do you think it's sufficiently robust and the sort of digital demands will carry on regardless of tariffs or as you say, a lesson and focus on sustainability, whatever it is? Do you think the data center industry is sufficiently robust to sort of ride whatever might be coming its way?
Well, I think that the demand exists to a degree, and I think that demand will continue to grow, that we will all be looking to expand the market of digital infrastructure over the course of the decades ahead. I see no abatement. I only really see acceleration from my position. What I do think we will start to see is some form of regulation or legislation coming in. And if not immediately, I think the peer pressure hopefully will put some greater focus and light on sustainability and efficiency for our industry. But I think in the short term, even if we don't see legislation and regulation coming in to help think about how to control resources, both from a supply and demand perspective. I think that the supply and demand itself, because of the tension that exists, at least for the next several years, will actually force us to head towards regulation and legislation. It will almost call into action more quickly the need for the resource controls. And what I also strongly believe is that as we are developing technologies at the application layer, there will be a greater influence and focus on data proliferation on a geographical basis. We used to talk about this as disaggregation of data. That was a phrase we used a lot many years ago. And I do strongly believe that that is coming quite rapidly, because at the moment, a lot of, for example, the large fundamental language models that are being developed, they are very much focused on huge amounts of infrastructure in a given single point. But I think we're just about to see the evolution of the next stage, because we've had 2 years of training these models. They're now out in the wild. We're seeing huge steps in algorithmic efficiency starting to come in. A lot of that being talked about with last week's events with DeepSeek. And I think we're about to see many efficiency steps that are going to come in over the course of the next few years. And one of those, and I'm absolutely certain of, is the proliferation of compute that can be disaggregated, so that we can see models that are actually pushed out on geographical basis and managed on a centralized function, but don't have to all be in a given location. And I think what that will drive is more efficiency across compute being diversified geographically. And therefore it will hopefully start to be a market where the supply-demand balance is controlled very much by the resource availability. And I think that's a fascinating change of events that will impact the locational decisions of customers as well as data center operators over the years ahead. But I think it will improve efficiency dramatically. And as we enter into an age where the training will continue for these large models, but we're starting to see the proliferation of inference, that's going to change completely the way we think about the entire footprint of the data center industry, which is going to be everywhere all of the time. So I think that's going to drive quite a lot of change in our industry. But I think some of that may well be both advanced and impaired by potential legislation and regulation, if not supply-demand imbalances coming up.
And I suppose just finally then, does that mean at some stage all data center operators, yourselves included, have to slightly reevaluate where they want to play within that ecosystem? I mean, I don't think you mentioned the word edge, because I guess it's been mentioned for a while and hasn't quite delivered, but that's kind of what's happening. I guess you're moving, as you say, the data and the applications nearer to the users. Is that something that you would be looking at, or you would sort of still keep your sort of Nordic focus and therefore act as more of a sort of, should we say, a larger warehouse rather than going out, more locally, or is that still to be decided, should we say?
I think the market will continue to expand in every direction imaginable. I think the term edge, everybody's got a different definition for that. Arguably, you could say the type of compute that is happening in the Nordics could be perceived as edge, because actually that's just not at what most people would call the core or the primary markets. Everyone's got a different definition about this. But I think the principal answer to the question from our perspective is the market is going to continue to change at a rapid rate. We are very much focused on providing the most efficient, cost-effective and sustainable compute for our customers. And we believe we do that with the great experience that we've built up for the last decade and a half of high-performance compute, high-intensity compute, operating at densities which are now 10 times what they were only a couple of years ago at the rack level. That's really our focus, and we'll continue to do that in the Nordic locations that we focus on and has been our core competence for many years. Of course, that is a complement to every other part of the market, which is going to develop at the same rates, no doubt, in every other part of the geographical map of the data center industry. But our focus is very much sustainable data centers in Nordic locations.
Okay, it's been great to chat, and thank you for giving me some great answers to the questions and some insight into what's going on at both Verne Global and the industry more generally. So Dominic, really appreciate the time you've given me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Phil. Good to speak to you as always.